Welcome to the Model Health Show. This is fitness and nutrition expert Sean Stevenson here with my amazing, talented, gifted co-host and producer, Jade Harrell. What's up, Jade?
What's up, Sean?
How are you today?
Today, I am limit-orated.
Limit-orated?
Yes.
Limit-orated.
I am liberated from my limits.
Oh, come on now.
Limit-orated.
I like that.
Limit-orated.
I like that. I
Thank
like it
you.
a lot. I like it a lot.
I'm glad you do, because it
Looking
feels
fly
great for
today.
me, too. Thank you.
You got those nice earrings going. We thought your earrings would be a problem today.
I felt wounded.
There was a noise going on in the studio. We thought it was those huge, beautiful earrings.
Thank you.
But yeah, you got the vibe going.
These
Yes.
were made by a woman who gets her supplies from other women in other countries to
love
empower them.
Yes,
So
that's beautiful right there.
It's a global thing.
So it's clothing with a meaning.
Yes,
as
with
well.
purpose.
Yes. So there's this concept, and I talk about this in Sleep Smarter actually. Form over fashion.
Yep.
Or function over fashion.
Exactly.
Because sometimes we unknowingly, because we want to look a certain way or to appear fashionable, we'll sacrifice our health.
Right.
Shout out to stilettos.
Oh,
all right.
man. You got
If you've
me.
seen your bone structure with those on, I mean, you look cute.
Thank
you look cute,
for now.
ladies. But the bone structure, though,
Yeah, later on, not so cute. Even by the end of the night, not so cute.
But
The
there's,
grimace on
and
her
I
face.
gotta say, there's always ways to, involve those kind of things. But it's just you don't want to live in those kind of heels. Like some women have sacrificed, like Mariah Carey, for example. Let's
Yeah.
talk about Mariah Carey.
Mariah.
Apparently, she walks on her tippy toes now.
Because she wore the
but
heels so much.
who knows? She's a little cray cray. But
A couple folks know.
shout out to One Sweet Day.
Yeah.
Shout out to what's that one which she did with old DB?
Oh, my gosh.
Fantasy.
Yeah.
Shout out to Fantasy. Me and Mariah. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the show today. We've got an incredible guest, and I'm
Yeah.
very excited. This topic matters a lot, and her work has really permeated into the work of many other of the top experts out there that you're hearing from.
Okay.
She's really created a classic in this book, and she has a new version coming out, which she made me swear an oath, basically. I had to prick my finger and send her some blood sample to get to get an advanced look at the book. And so I've just been going through it, and it's so enlightening and so refreshing. And this is for those who really want to take this to another level, to really create an in-depth understanding of nutrition and human health.
Absolutely.
This is one of those books that's definitely going to be at the forefront of that learning for you. So it's going to be amazing.
Of
But
her to share that with us.
two quick things I want to
Yeah.
share. Well, it's kind of three. It's kind of 2.5. All right. Number one,
2 1/4.
Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Be ready. I'm on my way there. I'm coming there.
Yeah.
It's going to be mid-January. So if you want to come out and hang out with me, head over to themodelhealthshow.com/DC. All right, themodelhealthshow.com/DC to get the information, find out where we're going to be. We're going to have a great time. Can't wait to hang out with you guys. So head over there, check that out ASAP. Also, guys, it's that season.
Yes.
Right? It's that season. Got Organifi right
Has
here.
returned.
All right. We've got to make sure our immune system is up to par. And as you're going to learn today, it's definitely not about taking these synthetic, made from who knows what, like carpet shreddings or whatever, to make multivitamins that you don't know what you're getting. This is using earth-grown nutrients here in Organifi. We've got the organic wheatgrass, which is loaded with vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, amino acids, 17 amino acids in there. We've also got the organic chlorella. I've been talking about chlorella lately. They got chlorella growth factor, one of the most powerful detoxifiers. It's great for your liver, great for your thyroid. Get those heavy metals out you. Get those out of your body.
Yes.
All right, organic spirulina as well, one of my favorite things of all time. Over 70% protein by weight. Beta carotene, phycocyanin.
Yes.
What do you know about phycocyanin?
I know that I need it.
Phycocyanin. It's one of those things that influences your stem cell production. There are very few things in this reality that can do that, and that kind of magic sauce is in there in Organifi. And of course, we've got the ashwagandha. We've got the coconut water that makes it taste nice.
Yummy.
The mint. Check it out. If you're not using Organifi yet, you need to get on it. This is something that is a daily thing, something I give to my kids.
Yes.
You've got to get on the Organifi green juice. Head over to Organifi.com/model.
And they have the cool little convenient packs to
Yes,
take
the
with
to-go
you.
packs. I've got that as well.
Yes.
I use these. I always bring these with me when I'm traveling. So if you want to get on the good stuff and make sure that you're protecting your body, protecting your cells, protecting your health, this is where you get that extra health insurance. Your food first,
Yeah.
but this is covering those additional bases rather than spending your money on things that are really waste. You know, these synthetic vitamins and minerals that your body doesn't necessarily know what to do with. All right, so head over, check them out, Organifi.com/model. That's ORGANIFI.com/MODEL. Use the checkout code MODEL, that's MODEL. You're going to get 20% off. 20% off
I can stock
forever.
up.
All right. Every
Forever.
time you head over and you buy your Organifi, you're going to get 20% off. So
Love it.
check them out. Also, today I have my my favorite tea right now. I'm really vibing with Rishi. But that's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that later. And I have my pumpkin spice MCT oil, emulsified MCT
ordered
oil.
mine.
And our guest can probably talk about MCT oil. Can't wait to hear what she has to say about it. But this is immediate cell food. This is incredibly important for your brain, your nervous system, and literally every cell in your body, your cell membranes. You got to have those healthy fats. So, and this pumpkin spice tastes amazing.
He said
It's a limited time.
That's a
I
loving
said
word.
pumpkin.
Pumpkin. That means you love it.
That was
That's
one
some
of
pumpkin.
my nicknames when I was a kid.
Did they call you
Yeah,
pumpkin?
not they. It's just my
Your
just my-
grandma?
just my mom and my
called you
grandma.
pumpkin?
Yeah, no, it wasn't out on the streets. I didn't go outside and
Okay.
like, hey, pumpkin.
Right.
And I'm like, is this because I'm kind of orange? I don't know.
Because you're so sweet. Pumpkin.
I used to actually tell people that I was part orange because I ate a lot of cheese.
Oh,
And I'm not kidding.
yeah.
Like when I was 5 years old, I'd be like, I'd say all the mixture melting pot that I am. I'm like, I'm this, and I'm part
For
cheese because I ate a lot, I'm part orange because I ate a lot of cheese. Anyways, so
That's a vivid, broad imagination. I love
this was a limited time for the pumpkin spice MCT oil. They've got the strawberry, the vanilla, the coconut. Check them out, onnit.com/model. That's ONNIT.com/model. Plus, they've got the hemp force protein, all the fitness equipment. Head over, check them out, get on the good stuff. Now, let's get to the iTunes review of the week.
All right, I don't know if you're ready for this one. It's pretty special. You have saved my friend's life. 5 stars. Dear Sean and Jade, tonight a miracle happened. Let me back up. I heard you on Shailene's podcast talking about your new sleep book. I immediately subscribed to your podcast and haven't missed an episode. I ordered your book and I sent it to my best friend who hasn't slept without medication for over 20 years and has suffered from depression most of her adult life. As a friend, I tried to help her find natural ways to end her suffering, but nothing has worked until now. Tonight we spoke on the phone and I am bursting with love and pride. She is using your book to sleep without medication. She is eating nutritious food as medicine for her depression. She is meditating to ease her anxiety. Your book has saved my friend from a life of insomnia and anxiety. There are no words to express how grateful I am. You have saved a life that is precious to her friends and family. You have saved the life of a woman who serves many in her medical profession. May you live with love, kindness, and compassion all your days. Namaste, Elizabeth.
Wow. Oh, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's kind of hard to talk about. That's really powerful. And I'm just
That's-
grateful. Thank you. Thank you.
That's a life
Yeah.
that was saved from anxiety and depression. I know what that means for you.
So everybody, thank you so much for leaving these reviews on iTunes. It means the world to me and then some. I appreciate it truly. All right. And special shout out to you and tell your friend I said hi as well. Give him a hug.
Okay.
All right. Now let's get to our special guest and our topic of the day. Today we have a legend. She's a living legend.
Yeah.
Cate Shanahan, MD, is a board-certified family physician. She trained in biochemistry and genetics, two of my favorite topics. Gonna nerd out together today.
Oh, boy.
At Cornell University, before attending Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. For 10 years, she practiced medicine in Hawaii, where she studied ethnobotany and the culinary habits of her healthiest patients. She currently runs a metabolic health clinic in Denver, Colorado, and serves as the director of the Los Angeles Lakers Pro Nutrition Program. And I'd like to welcome to the Model Health Show, Dr. Cate Shanahan. How you doing today, Cate?
I'm doing good. I'm trying to stay warm here. It's a winter arrived day, but I'm really excited to be on your show, and that's keeping me warm inside.
Oh, come
wow.
on. You're just
You
the
are
best.
yeah.
You're the best. We've already bonded, when you made me take the oath
I
for
did.
getting your book. Yes, she was like, your firstborn shall be named Cate, if thou doth give this book away. So it's amazing, and I'm just grateful to have you on. And your story is amazing. The information in the book is just so powerful. And if you could, I'd like to start with your story. I'd love to know a little bit more of your superhero origin story. What got you interested in health and fitness and wellness and medicine in the first place?
I think I was born a baby doc. So some of my earliest memories, my dad's actually a doctor, but it had to be, I was thinking about this after I got your question. And I think it really had to be when I was something like 4 or 5 and my dad was in medical school. He took me to his anatomy class. We walked we were in Philadelphia, and we walked from our house to Temple University into the anatomy lab and onto this table where there was a person, or it was a dead body, but they had been like all kind of pulled apart, their skin peeled off. And I was just absolutely fascinated that there was stuff inside. And because I had never thought about it, right? Like I knew I had skin, and if I cut myself, the blood would come out. And I thought it was, I never really thought about what was in there, but that was just so fascinating. So from that moment forward, I just knew I would be a doctor. Wow. And so that's what got me interested in health. What got me interested in nutrition was my own health problem. When I was in Hawaii practicing medicine, I developed a knee problem, and it was pretty awful. I could not walk for a long time, for 2 years, and nobody knew what was wrong with it. I went to surgeons, I went to specialists. They were like, we can't really see it. There's no explanation. We don't know what's going on. You look fine to me. And
yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty frustrating. And my boss was not very understanding either. And, he was really giving me a hard time. So it was hard for me to work even. So ultimately my husband told me, maybe all that sugar that you eat could not, maybe it would be better if you were an insect or something, but you're not. And I had a lot of sugar. I should let you know that. I confess. I had a special sauce that I made for myself to pour in my coffee, a caramel sauce that each serving had a 1/4 cup of sugar that I would pour into my coffee.
Special sauce, to say the least. Oh my goodness.
I made it myself because on Hawaii, we didn't have a lot of like flavorings. You had to do a lot of stuff yourself.
Did you have a name for it?
Did I have a what?
Did you have a name for it?
No, my husband did. He called it my insect juice.
Oh my goodness.
So anyway, so he gave me a copy of Andrew Weil's book called Spontaneous Healing. And in there, I read about omega-3 fats. And at that point in time, this was the early 2000s, I had never heard of this. This was not something that first graders learn about. Everybody now knows fish oil and omega-3 fats are good for you, but I didn't. And I felt like that was a major, major oversight, and I needed to know everything that I could possibly find out about fats and why some were good and some were bad and what was going on there. So even though I couldn't walk, I got a plane ticket and flew to Oahu to the medical bookstore over there and got a biochemistry book, which I read cover to cover. And then another book that I ran into called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by a dentist who was actually a real genius who lived in the early part of the 1900s, and his book came out before World War II. And it was a real eye-opening book because what he did was look for healthy people, which was a very important concept that I really I recognized was a big missing link in our medical education. We don't understand what health is. We know what disease is, and we know, we can rattle off about 1,000 different kinds of diseases in alphabetical order, but if you ask a doctor to define what health is, it's hard for us to do it without saying, well, it's just the absence of disease. But that's not it. That's not all there is to it.
Yeah.
So that you have to kind of get into, more Eastern concepts from there. But this Dr. Weston Price actually in his book, he kind of quantified that it has to do with how you look as well, and that your body should grow a certain way. You should have space for all the teeth in your mouth. You shouldn't need glasses like I do. And that is what health is, part of what health is. So that was really my window into a whole other universe of potential useful information for my patients. And after learning that, that's when I kind of got inspired to go down this road of looking for more so that I could really help my patients.
Yeah, that's such a great story. So it basically changed the whole trajectory because you were trained as a conventional physician, and I see this story, and I know you see this as well. Many physicians are suffering for many of the things that they're treating with their patients, and this is kind of that missing component. And you did a 180 with your own health, but also influencing the health of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of other people. But then it can get to the scale of millions by all of the other physicians and health experts who you've influenced. And you're even changing culture now, like getting into like LeBron James, like on the paleo diet or something like that, but getting into organizations like the Los Angeles Lakers. So let's talk a little bit about that. How did that transition come about, and are you enjoying that work? Let's talk about it.
Like so many changes in my life, it had to do with my husband, because he has always been into cooking himself, and he's always noticed that, like, people who cook are living in this world where, nobody really, not nobody, but a lot of people don't want to cook, and a lot of people gauge the quality of their lives by how little time they spend in the kitchen. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there's these celebrity chefs, and it's like there's this major disconnect. And he was like, the only way we can get people healthy is to get people really to appreciate good food, whether they make it themselves or not, but to appreciate good food. How do we do that? And in his giant brain, asking that question, the answer he spit out was sports. Because America loves sports, and if we could get basketball players and sports heroes to become foodies, then that's a major coup for health for everyone, because then they can become role models for, not just sports discipline and making the oodles of money, but also good patterns of eating. Mm-hmm. And so he proposed to Gary Vitti, the trainer at the Los Angeles Lakers, that there were some things that they could be taking advantage of in terms of diet that they weren't, that would help with recovery from injuries. And at that time, it was the beginning of a season where a lot of their players were older. And so Gary was particularly interested. It was good timing. And he actually read our book and gave us a call back and said, that he said, everybody who's ever written a book has felt the need to send me a copy. You are the only person I've ever called back. And so he made sure that we knew that, so that we would be extremely appreciative, which we were. We were anyway, but that made it, that really drilled it home. It meant a lot to us because Gary's really quite a guy, and he's a legend in the NBA. And then he just, asked me a few questions. How would it work? What would it look like? What would we do? And gradually brought these concepts on board over the course of about 6 months.
And you said that at this point, and how many years ago was this?
This was 2012.
Okay, so older players. So you mean like Steve Nash, probably? I think he was with them then. Yes. Kobe was starting to get older. So I'm just going to go ahead and credit Kobe's last game with 60 points. I'm going to credit you for that. You weren't on the court, doing the and you see me doing it.
Yeah, I see. Right.
You weren't making the moves, but because of that, having that leverage with nutrition for recovery, also just your body's ability to do work. Yep. And this is what I want to talk about next, because you've got a lot of incredible insights about this. And I've said many times before on the show that today's diets are experiments. All right, they're like experiments. Humans have tried to eat everything throughout our human history. Like, there have been people here, as crazy as this sounds, guys, humans have tried to eat sand. Humans have tried to eat soap, or like humans have tried to taste everything. Poo, all right?
Yep.
Some people still do that now. I mentioned this before, Bear Grylls. The guy who basically goes out and survives in all these crazy places. Yeah, he came across some bear poop.
I love that guy.
Yeah, he was like, oh, well, we got to survive. Here's some bear poop, and there's some berries and nuts in here. And then he takes a little piece of some fruit out of it. He's like, yeah, it tastes like poop. I'm like, yes, man, you just ate some poop. Anyways, let's as I digress.
Yeah,
So humans have
basically
tried to eat everything,
us.
all right? And they've left this lineage. They noted which foods work incredibly well. And on the far end of the spectrum, they have also noted which foods will kill you, all right? Like certain categories of poisonous mushrooms, for example. There are wonderful mushrooms that can heal you on so many levels, but then there's some that will take you out.
Right.
And then there's some that'll do other things. You know, there's a big spectrum. But all of these foods have been noted for us. But today, most diets are guessing games, all right? Trying to find out what we should be eating for optimal health, whether it's the South Beach diet, Atkins diet, vegetarian diet. It's an experiment. And what you talk about is this rogue, rebellious idea that you call the human diet.
Whoa.
Right? It's this crazy thing called the human
Blowing my
diet. So let's talk
mind.
about what the human diet is and why it's so appropriately named.
The human diet is the diet that will connect you to the source of health, which is nature, in the same way that your ancestors connected to nature. And so it gets back to what we used to do is very important because you are what you eat. And we talk about these concepts in the book, and I think we're going to talk about them later today, that what you eat directs your DNA on how to make decisions about what to do, what to grow, and stuff like this. So if your DNA has certain expectations for information from the outside world, and it doesn't get those things that it was expecting, that is when we get sick. And so the human diet prevents that because it gives your body what it's expecting. And the way that we defined it was by recognizing a couple things. So let me first share with you that I do have a bias, and that bias is that nature knows better than technology. Technology we created. We're pretty smart, but nature's been around a lot longer than any of us,
right?
And a lot smarter. She's been we've done a lot of cool stuff with buildings and whatnot, but she's done a lot of cool stuff with, everything else that we see when we look out our window. Hopefully, if you live somewhere that's not in an inner city, you can see some trees or something. So that philosophy, nature knows best, feeds into, okay, well, what is really nutrition? Before we had nutritionists to answer this question, before doctors got in the game, the people that decided what nutrition was were us. We're the people that hunted and prepared our food. So we did what came natural to us. And in terms of like figuring out what we should and shouldn't eat, we had our nose and our tongue to help guide us. So that means that nutrition tasted good to us. And so flavor is nutrition. So our like thought process was, you know what, we do have a record of what people used to eat everywhere around the world, no matter where it was. And that is the culinary tradition, these recipes that have been passed down from generation to generation. Yeah. And based on that thought process, what we did was we said, well, if there is something that every single culture around the world shares as a common element, we better know about that, because that is something that that's kind of like everybody does it. We better keep doing that. Yeah. And it turns out that there were four things, not just one, four things that everybody did. And it wasn't just that they added them to their diet. These things compose the sum totality of their diet. And we call them the four pillars of world cuisine, because they are the underpinning of every single cuisine out there, whether you live in Alaska or Hawaii or France or Zimbabwe. Your culinary heritage includes these four pillars. It was composed of these four pillars.
I'm excited. Right. Let's talk about the four pillars. Let's go. What's the first one?
So the first one is fresh food, and that means not adulterated in any way, basically, not even cooked. And ideally, if it's seasonal, that would be even better. So like salad is a perfect example, but people around the world also eat a lot of other things that are not cooked. Like in Japan, sushi is very famous for it. And in Europe, they do, in Italy, there's a breakfast of champions that they have, which is composed of raw milk, raw cream, a raw egg, vanilla, and a little bit of honey. And of course, the honey's raw too. And so a lot of raw animal products. Why is that important? Because heat destroys nutrition in a lot of cases. And so you get more nutrients if you have the food unadulterated. Mm-hmm. So that's the first one.
Got it. Oh, can I say something here? This is really important because I'm glad that you brought this up. It's not just the plant kingdom, but the animal kingdom as well, and kind of changing our paradigm with that because, and what's coming to mind for whatever reason is the movie Kevin Costner, classic.
When he was out in the wilderness?
He's out in the, can you guess what it is?
Dances with
Wolves. Yes. Look, we're having a little trivia here on the Mile Show. Yes, Dances with Wolves, and he goes out and he's on the hunt with them, and they take down the buffalo, and then to eat the heart, right? They eat it raw, like right there. And I see you. She just shimmied a little. She just squirmed a little, But this is something that has been done for a long, long time of consuming raw animal foods. And this is something, instead of like a theory about what we should be eating. And I'm not saying that you need to go and like grab a heart out and, do some kind of ninja stuff like, and I got your heart or whatever. Right. I'm just saying that we need to open up our minds and to look at our history, look at our past. What have humans been doing the longest? And even before fire, humans were engaging in this, or our ancestors. So that's a big thing that I'm glad that you brought up. And whether that's like, raw eggs or the raw dairy products. And of course, there's an intelligent way to go about these things. It's not just raw products from any old animal as well. Factory farmed milk, you don't want to drink that stuff if it's not pasteurized, homogenized, and now probably glowing in the dark. You got to be careful because of the potential issues with disease and things like that. But bottom line is, I'm so glad that you brought that up. And also, when it comes to, and you said it's for many occasions, not cooking is going to be advantageous, but there are places to cook, and I know you're going to talk about this later. But what we're retaining with not cooking, the enzymes, enzymatic activity of the food, there's three kinds of enzymes. There are food enzymes, which get destroyed from high heat. There are metabolic enzymes, which are basically doing jobs in your body. And then there are your digestive enzymes. And I'm of the opinion that your body can really get taxed if you're not bringing in some food enzymes, because it has to use so much of its resources trying to break this stuff down, right? They're catalysts.
Nice.
And another big thing that you get from all these raw foods is antioxidants, right? So everybody's running around taking a lot of antioxidant supplements these days, but just the raw foods themselves, they're right in there. They're built right in. And we want to fight, oxidation is one of these processes that when uncontrolled, it promotes rapid and accelerated aging in addition to diseases. So. Yes. So, but you brought up something very important when you said about food safety, because that actually brings up me to one of the benefits of the second pillar of world cuisine.
Awesome.
Are we ready for that?
I'm ready. Let's go. I'm on my edge.
Pillar two. So that one is fermented and sprouted. And now it arose out of a practical reason, because when you have too much fresh food, say you have, grown a whole bunch of cabbage, or you caught like 1,000 fish and your village only has like 25 people in it, you got to store that stuff And before freezing or canning, the only way, the technology that they had to use to store it was to work with nature. And the process that they used was fermentation. And fermentation is a coordinated effort with Mother Nature and the microbes to what we do is we give microbes a little bit of our food, and in return, these microbes are the friendly microbes, and they fight off the bad microbes for us. So it's really a battle of the good guys versus the bad guys in our fermented food. And this is what's happening when you manufacture yogurt, or when you make at home sauerkraut or make your own yogurt. And a lot of people don't realize, but sushi was actually a fermented food originally. They packed it in rice, and the rice had bacteria, and it was used to preserve the fish. And so that the rice would actually mold, and then when it was time to eat the fish, they would scrape off that yucky stuff on the outside, and then the meat and the fish would have changed a little bit and partially fermented as well. So we're now finding that with all this talk about gut flora and how important they are and how complicated they are, there's like 5,000 species in there, and we're completely at a loss as to what should I supplement or whatever. What we used to do was we just would ferment all these different kinds of foods, and then the bacteria, the living bacteria that were on those foods that helped to preserve it, we would be eating those, and that would create the good balance of power in our intestinal tract. So we'd have a lot more of the good guys. So even if we, ended up eating something that wasn't so great for us, there were enough good guys in there that they could kill the bad guys.
That's such an enlightening moment right there, because we often think that we're just kind of subject to this occasion of food poisoning. But if your immune system is strong and your gut bacteria, you have a healthy microbiome, your body can defend you from so much stuff that you don't have any idea about, because you're just too busy being healthy and feeling good.
Right. Too busy
and it's
being
just
healthy.
it's so great that you brought that up, and I'm very thankful. And I didn't want to give this away when I was talking about being able to consume animal foods, fresh foods, but then I was going to share that there is another way that you can go about that when the fresh turns to fermented. And it's just really important that we are able to bring these things in, whether that you just said it's like fermented fish. This is actually many long-lived cultures still do that. And I'd love for you to kind of share some insights about the different cultures that you studied as we go along here. But also, fermented dairy, for example, has been around a long, long time. And this is something
Cheese.
that we all can do, cheese, right? But again, it's the quality of those things is paramount. Where are your sources for these foods? And recently, we cracked a few eggs, so we got some eggs from this really amazing farm, local farm. They're doing stuff right.
Great.
And you see that yolk was golden,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And then you see the typical
The first
egg,
thing
and
you
it was
notice.
like this pale yellow,
Yeah.
barely yellow. It was like blello, right? And then you see this beautiful golden, and then you just know wow, that looks more nutritious. And your ancestors probably went off of those cues as well, by looking at your food, smelling your food, actually tasting it but now it's like there's so much safety. People, you're disconnected from that part of where your food is coming from. You get the end product, so you don't have any of that, and you just trust that it's safe, right? And your tastes aren't acute, or they aren't tuned in to testing for safety or not, and it's just something I just kind of want to point people to. But
Well, your awareness too. So until my grandmother said, "Those aren't eggs," and she says, "These
Good
are
for her.
eggs," right?
Yeah.
And she said,
sound
"Take
like
a
Crocodile
look."
Dundee,
Right.
though.
Get that
That's
out of
not a
here.
knife.
That's not.
That's a knife. Yeah.
No, that's exactly. And before, it was the only understanding that I had. And when she showed me that, it was really profound.
Yeah.
And she said, that's what life and sunshine looks like inside of
Love
your
it.
food.
Love
So I connected with that right away.
I got verbally hand slapped in a grocery store when I was a teenager, and I was trying to get, I was just shopping for apples, and it was instinctive that you pick it up and you smell it, right? Because you should smell your food before you eat it. I know it's like weird now. We don't do that, but it's instinctive. And some lady was like, that's disgusting. And and I was like, oh my God. And I put it back down. I was like feeling all guilty. But then, after I grew up and started watching TV shows and educated myself thanks to TV shows, you see these cooking shows and travel shows, and they've got open markets, and that's what people do. They pick up the food, they pinch it, they manhandle it, and they get all in there with it because they want to know what they're buying. They want to know what they're putting into their body. So, if I had thought about it, I would have said, what's really disgusting is not knowing what you're putting into your body.
Yes.
But
So
this is only
good.
30 years later.
Right.
That's so good.
What I would have said.
And and then of course, like you just said, so like these top chefs, but also something that's very, kind of bougie can be, is this wine experience, and tasting fine wines.
Yes,
and we you got to stick that nose in that glass, right? And that's something that's acceptable, but smelling your apple at the store, but it's conditioning, it's like, ew, what are you doing, little cat? Oh my God.
Right. Get away from that.
In reality, that's the thing that we should be doing is paying attention to our senses to get a connection with our food. And I think that's healing in itself. So let's move on to the third pillar.
Third pillar, ready. Okay, so the third pillar is meat on the bone. And this was one of the favorites at the Lakers. It still is. They're still doing this program. And what meat on the bone gets you, or what it's made out of, is meat where you cook the meat and you use the bone and all the other parts that come with the meat. So there's benefits for cooking meat with fat on it that have to do with preserving the flavor and preserving the protein value. But when you also include the bone and the ligament and the skin in like a soup, for example, you're extracting nutrients from these collagen bearing animal parts that have the long names like glycosaminoglycan and collagen hydrolysate and proteoglycan and all these things, but they actually give you very unique benefits, and it's almost like a missing food group. So that when you eat them, they do not get broken down by the digestive system, which was something that just was not predicted. Doctors used to poo-poo the idea that you could get any benefit from the supplement glycosaminoglycan, which is made from these things, because they said, well, it would just be digested. But it actually gets a free pass through the digestive system, escaping all the digestive enzymes that would break it down, and it travels in the bloodstream and goes to your joints. If there's an injury in any of your joints, this has been shown by radio labeling these molecules in mice, little injured joints, and they have a name for it. It's called tropism. So it's attracted to the joint that is damaged, and in that joint, it helps promote healing because it turns on these cells that lay down collagen, which is what your joints need. Your joints love collagen. They're made out of collagen. Your tendons and everything are made out of this stuff. And so the cells, in response to these molecules from bone broth, basically, the fibroblasts will start spitting out more collagen to help strengthen your joints. And the same thing happens in your skin. So I get letters from people all the time telling me that, they can't believe their skin is glowing, and they get compliments from their friends, and their hair is much thicker, their nails grow faster. And one lady even said that she had a friend that asked her if she had done Botox, and she said, no, not Botox, bone broth. Love that.
That's T-shirt worthy right there.
She's already given me like 5 different slogans.
You know what? There's so much here already. The glycosaminoglycan. So these are essentially, if people listen to the name, glyco that is in there, these are essential sugars in a way. You hear about essential proteins, you hear about essential fatty acids. What about this other group? It's really kind of villainized, and in many ways it should be because of the way that we are consuming. These are not the polysaccharides, the things that we're talking about, but these are really healing compounds. Isn't that right?
Exactly. And they don't come from like fruit or starchy food. Yeah. They are molecular combinations of sugar, like you said, with amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein. So they come from animal products and I get a lot of questions from like vegans. Is there anything similar in the plant world? And there actually is something very similar, not exactly the same. So we don't know if it would have the same benefits, but theoretically it could. And it comes from seaweed because the technology to hold plants and animals together is actually very similar, and it's the same combinations of amino acid and protein that seaweed uses to hold the individual seaweed plant cells together. So there's a vegan joint supplements that are made out of these things, but they're not as well tested. I couldn't promise you that they would help, but there's some reason to believe that they would.
Yeah. And this is something that's been, again, those long-lived cultures that you started off talking about, has it been implemented into their diets for thousands and thousands of years as sea veggies. So the noris, kelp, dulse, sea palm, wakame, arame. I've had all of these, and I continue to have them on a pretty regular basis. And I'm so glad you brought this up because they're rich in polysaccharides, right? These kind of essential sugars that do really cool things in your body. Another thing, and I just want you to give it like a bottom line for us on this, but doesn't collagen kind of hold us together, right?
Without collagen, we would disintegrate into small piles of individual cells. And if you put us on top of water, we would look like pond scum.
That's not T-shirt worthy. Not T-shirt worthy.
I think so.
This reminds me of the original X-Men movie.
Yeah.
Remember that guy?
Yeah.
He like turned into some kind of a frog or something, but then he turned into like goo, like liquid, whatever.
And there were sound effects.
That mutation probably pulled out all of his collagen. He couldn't hold himself together.
See? You solved that. For that film for me.
The best athletes, they must have the best collagen because it is really like the collagen molecules in our body that give us this durability, and athletes of all people have to be extremely durable. And it's also essential to like being active and healthy into long life as having good top quality collagen. Awesome. So keeping bone broth, especially for a child, they can actually build more robust connective tissue with collagen in the diet than they could without it. So that's why I say it's kind of like a missing food group. We want to think about it with the Cate.
Exactly. So let's move on to the next pillar, the final pillar.
And I saved this for last because it's the best. Organ meats. Okay, now you already kind of actually brought up the idea that when people hunt an animal and the hunters go out and they risk their lives trying to fight down a wild boar. Back in the day when we didn't have bullets and couldn't do it from a safe distance, it was really a daily trial, and they would be all hyped up on that testosterone, and they'd be slicing the thing open and taking out the guts because it would make it easier to carry back for everybody. But they didn't waste the organ meats. And so in a lot of cultures, the hunters get the first dibs at the liver or the heart, and they will eat it raw. And on Hawaii, there's some old time Filipino guys that told me that were my patients that said, yeah, that's what we did. It would be a pig too, right? Where, trichinosis and all these red flags come up as a doctor. But that's what they did. And, maybe because they had all the good bacteria in their gut, maybe, who knows what, but these guys that told me about it, they were like in their 60s and 70s and they were fine, no sign of trichinosis anywhere in the body. And of course, I'm definitely not saying go out and do that and it will be safe. But it's just like, these are things that people used to do, and it was associated with toughness, right? It was like a trial, right? You proved yourself worthy. You could kill an animal. Now you get the reward of this thing, eating this slimy thing. And, you're hungry. You worked up your appetite from hunting. It's going to taste a little bit better. And they loved it. I mean, they talk about the guys that I spoke with talked about it, like with these memories of this, like the way some people talk about wine, like, oh, that bottle was just like, it was a little bit of, cigar notes and blah, blah, blah. Well, they would have those same kind of intense memories and feelings around these experiences that they had. And eating was such a more intense experience. And, we can't really capture all that, but these days, because unless you really do go out and hunt and do all that, but I just like people to understand that our relationship with food was kind of it was primal, and it was almost a transcendental or religious experience, and so now, contrast to now, fast forward, where we basically, when we're going shopping, we choose our food based on price, and it's just like such a completely different mindset. And a lot of folks ask me, okay, so you talk about like getting pastured food and organic. Well, it's expensive. I'm not sure that I want to reprioritize all of my, my whole family savings and everything like that towards such a higher percentage towards food. And that's totally fine. But there's a cost to it. As I'm not going to tell you there's not a cost. You do what you can do and be proud of what you can do. But the more that you can do, the more you will be rewarded.
I love that. And you brought it up an important point. We're making a lot of our decisions for what we eat based on price, also convenience, and of course taste. But our tastes have been attacked. Our tastes are very deranged.
Our taste buds have been hijacked.
Yeah.
By artificial flavors and, Doritos and sugar in particular. That's a natural flavor technically, but in the quantities and the purity and the concentration that we consume it should be considered artificial. It's a refined chemical.
What I hear more too is the idea of how currency came after, and we lost the idea that health is our currency. Nutrition,
totally.
Nutrition is the wealth. And
genetic wealth.
You're
right. Exactly. You're thinking the same way, because we actually call it genetic wealth.
I love that.
So where we, as Americans, when we look at a place like China where people are subsistence farmers, and we say that's poverty, but you look at them and they're making their own food. Their food is fresh. They love their food. They're proud of it. They're out there working. They're in touch with nature and touch with traditions. They've got somebody in the kitchen working the way that, they're proud of what they're doing, and they're healthy. They're doing all this work, and they're not on 12 different prescriptions in their 60s the way Americans are. And their children are healthy. Their children are intelligent. They don't have these learning disorders that are becoming so common now. So we look down on it and we say we need to lift people out of this. And I'm not saying that we want to have, return to serfdom or anything like that, but I'm saying we need to give it the respect of what it is.
Okay. Yeah. I love that. That's a great summary for that point, which is, respecting the human diet, whether or not we agree with it, in our theories of what we should be eating. This is what humans have been doing the longest. And that's why I wanted to have you on, was to share that fact so we can just get back in touch with it and maybe consider maybe this is something that my genes might be expecting me to have, because there are some really interesting compounds. So let's really, really quickly, can we talk about some of the kind of really rare nutrients, especially in the amounts that they're available in different organ meats?
Yeah. So liver is like the best source of some B vitamins and an excellent source of iron as well. And doctors in in the early part of the 1900s, before we had iron pills, if somebody was anemic, if their blood counts were low, they would just tell their patients to have some more liver. And so now we have dehydrated liver pills. Bone marrow is a source of some very special fatty acids that are actually branched, which is unusual, and have very so important beneficial effects on our own white blood cells, on our own immune system. And bone marrow is a source of some very special fatty acids that are actually branched, which is unusual, and have very so important beneficial effects on our own white blood cells, on our own immune system. And bone marrow is a source of some very special fatty acids that are actually branched, which is unusual, and it's kind of an example of like helps like, because our immune system lives in our bone marrow. That's where our white blood cells are born. Another example is, like tripe. So tripe is another, tripe comes from cow stomach, and it's a base of one of Mexico's really traditional cultural soups called menudo. The band Menudo was named after the soup, if you remember that back in the 80s.
Shout out to Ricky Martin.
Yeah.
So that was made with tripe. And when you boil tripe, you also get a lot of those glycosaminoglycans. And so that's just like kind of the tip of the iceberg. There's so many other examples of like healing like there's fat that you get in the back of the eye. There's this soup that I actually like. It's called Filipino fish head soup that includes the fish head, and the eyes are in there. And there's the fat behind the fish eye is loaded with vitamin A, which is incredibly healthy for our own eyes. So again, it's kind of like helps like. Yeah. Nature wants to make things simple for us.
Well, I think, right, exactly. And so the same thing with thyroid, people taking more of a quote, natural source of thyroid, they're going to take desiccated thyroid, for example. It's one of the common things that's used today in medicine. But so some people right now are really getting it. Like, I need to up my game with this. And some people are like,
not going to do that.
Yeah. And it's just understanding that this information is really there for you to have in your utility belt. Should you need it. And also there are other ways to go about this stuff. There's actually really great strategies for making these foods taste good if you wanted to eat them, or like desiccated liver from Perfect Supplements, for example, something that we've been using for a while. And you guys can check that out. It's perfectsupplements.com/model. That's perfectsupplements.com/model. The desiccated liver there. She just shared, and this is the concentrated bioavailable form of these nutrients you really can't find in any other ratio and in a way that your body can recognize as it is in these organ meats. So it's just something to consider. Mm-hmm. And if you're like, it's not my cup of tea, let's move on, to the next thing, but it's all right. It's just about having these things in your utility belt. And I'm so glad she brought this up, which is, this is all about respecting our lineage, respecting our heritage, respecting where we come from and the processes that have gotten lost in a big way today. And how can we retrace those steps a little bit and make it our own? And so, like, we had Katie Bowman on the show recently and talking about how how we can incorporate more movement in our eating practices. Actually walking to the store to get your food, or maybe grating the cinnamon instead of like buying it already powdered. Like just some action steps to get more involved in your eating. It doesn't mean you have to take away all convenience. All right. Sometimes I just want to kick back and have that food delivered to me, but other times, the majority of the time I want to do something to interact with the meal that I'm about to eat, because it's a sacred process.
Well, that will make it more convenient because you'll be more vibrant and approach it with more energy and vigor. Yeah. So, hey, let's grate
and
some
if you
cinnamon.
have that like mindset too, and you've got kids that are 4, 5, 6, they can do something in the kitchen. They can wash the mushrooms. Sometimes they can peel the carrots. But kids at that age are like sponges. They want to do what adults do, and it just makes it so much more exciting for them when they actually get those particularly vegetables, because that's often a challenge. And if they've played a role in the kitchen in making it, it's going to be a lot easier to get them to eat it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, let's move on to another important topic here in your book. And this is something that really jumped out for me and something that I'm very, very interested in and passionate about. And it's something in this chapter, it focuses on the intelligent gene. The intelligent gene. So what are you wanting people to learn from this chapter?
Yeah, so the concept there is that your DNA is actually listening for instructions on what to do, what is going on in the outside world. And you tell it what's going on. You tell it how healthy the world is. You tell it whether or not it's a good time to grow, particularly, in early childhood, a more muscular or a taller person, by how much protein and how much calcium that child gets as they're growing. And older, when you're older, the same chemical signals will tell your body, okay, so yeah, we can still grow bone here because we're getting plenty of vitamin D. We're still getting plenty of calcium. So that's what the whole field of epigenetics really kind of helps us understand more in more scientific detail, is exactly what is that intercourse, that connection between the food that we eat and the decisions that the DNA inside every single one of our cells makes. Is it going to express the protein for building bone or not? And it depends directly on actions that we take. And so that we think, when I went to medical school, what I learned was that your genes are really set in stone. And if you're going to be tall, you're going to be tall. If you're going to get heart disease or cancer, you're going to get heart disease or cancer. There's nothing that you can do about it. It's like preordained almost, but that is entirely not true. There's so much more control you can take with your diet. And one of the delightful things that I got to do when I worked with the Lakers a couple of years ago was Jeremy Lin, who was a Chinese player who actually grew about 6 inches taller than his dad, and his mom wasn't very tall either. And he told me a story that when he was little, he wanted to grow tall. He just wanted to be big. And he said, "Mom, what can I do? I want to be big." And his mom said, "Well, drink a lot of milk, have a lot of protein." And he read up on some stuff himself, and he took some calcium supplements for extra calcium. And I have to believe that with that, N of 1 experiment, that is a big reason why Jeremy Lin is so much taller than his parents. So, he biohacked himself as a kid.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Right,
And
right.
you
Plus
see
his
this,
determination.
we all have
Yeah.
a genetic ideal blueprint, that we have this potential to be so many different versions of what we are, but there's a greatest version of ourselves, And a lot of this, though, is really played out when you're younger, but there are so many factors that are still available no matter where you are on this kind of lifespan right now. You can do a lot of things to basically, we talk about epigenetics, nutrigenomics, just looking at how each single morsel of food that you eat impacts your genetic expression for either some change in your skin health or the taking away of something with your skin health, your bones. So this happened to me. I had this degenerative bone disease diagnosis at 20. And I broke my hip. My bones were already deteriorating, breaking down when I was 15. I broke my hip at track practice, just running, right? And, spoiler alert, everybody, I got a lot better. But the bottom line was this was a genetic printout of what was happening. I was so deficient in so many things. My genes couldn't express character traits for good health. It's amazing I made it that far.
Right.
Because, I'm not kidding. I was on the fast food diet, hardcore. Twinkies, Chocodiles, right? The chocolate Twinkies. What do you know about that?
I'm aware,
Two for $1 honey buns. I was $2 for $1 everything. 2 for $1 apple pies, right? The 99-cent cheeseburgers. Oh my goodness.
You were frugal.
But it's so crazy how frugal. But it's so amazing how first of all, I want to point this out, how resilient the human body is, because I made it eating that stuff. Like that speaks to our resiliency. However, what about optimal? What about vitality?
Right.
I was lacking that. That's what I was lacking. And that's what you get from eating these real foods and following what Dr. Cate Shanahan is sharing with really tapping into our ancestral nutrition and incorporating these things on a regular basis for a higher genetic expression.
It's like this game they do where they bring in a box of different materials, whether it's bolts and random things, recycled things, and they set it down and say, well, here, create something from it. Well, we're kind of coming in with a box of potential with all the materials there, but how it's constructed will determine what kind of end product, what kind of great creation you'll have at the end, and how you assemble and put the things together and manipulate those tools properly to
Yeah,
give
it's a good
its greatest
analogy. It's kind of
outcome.
like we are, our DNA is the blueprint, and then the food that we get is the raw materials. And one of my least favorite foods, one of the things that I tell everybody that they should avoid, right? In this era of gluten intolerance, a lot of people focus on that, but something about 1% of our caloric intake comes from gluten, but the average American gets about 30 to 50% of their caloric intake from these fats that come from vegetable oils.
Mhm.
And these vegetable oils are refined polyunsaturated fats. And what that does is that means that they are deformed fats that are prone to oxidation. And so when you mentioned that you have like this kit bag of, here, what can I build this body out of? It is these vegetable oils get into our bodies. Our body has no defense mechanism against them. We cannot screen them out like we can with some other toxins. We have a very difficult time. Our liver has a very difficult time getting rid of them. So what happens is that essentially they show up at our cells, and the foreman at the construction site on the cell says, "Okay, I was expecting concrete blocks here, and you gave me styrofoam balls.
Right. Get that
That
outta
is not going to
here."
fly." And the delivery guy says, "What? It's what I got. I'm sorry. Make do." And that's what happens. And particularly in our brain, when our cells have to make do out of these styrofoam balls instead of the solid bricks that our brain's supposed to be made out of, it drastically affects the kind of brain cell, how the brain cells will work, how they will develop, how they will grow. And I really think that this consumption of vegetable oils is an overlooked environmental cause of a lot of learning disorders, including autism, which is maybe one of the scariest.
Oh man, yeah.
That's, you know what? This is so important because today, more than you just said it, 30 to 50%, that's a huge ratio of people's diets that they're consuming this. It's a waste product, right? These so-called vegetable oils. So what do we need to do about this? And, before we get to that part, there's one, well, actually, let's just dive in and kind of break this whole thing down. So instead of the vegetable oils, which we know that I guess they get integrated into our cellular matrix, like your body is, like you just said, it's using these lower quality materials to make you. What do we need to do instead?
So to avoid those, we have to read ingredients because the food manufacturers love this stuff because it acts like a preservative. It acts they can play with it. It's a chemical, really. They can use it like they use petroleum to make plastics. They can change the texture of our food. They use it to preserve the food. So you have to look at everything, particularly salad dressings and dips, ready-made foods, popcorn, the microwave popcorn, because the butter-like substance. So that's how you get it out of your diet. And what do you do instead? Well, this is where it's like the good news. The bad news is those vegetable oils are in a lot of stuff. We even got some dried blueberries and looked at the ingredients. And what do you know? Vegetable oil was a coating because it works as an antifungal too. It's how deadly it is. But the natural fats that we have been eating all along are delicious. So that means you get butter, you get coconut oil, you get sesame oil, if you like Asian cooking, peanut oil. Peanut oil is people have a lot of questions about that. So I do go into some detail in our book explaining, how to get good peanut oil. And avocado oil is another example. Ghee, and then the traditional restaurant fats. If you can find a restaurant that uses a traditional fat, they are a blessing in your neighborhood. And the traditional fats that restaurants used to use for their fryers was like tallow and even lard. And when we lived in Tucson, the tortillas were made with the traditional fat there, which was lard. And so that's like the good news is that, yes, you can have these natural fats, because when one of the big things that I learned when I went through my revolution and understanding what causes health and what health is and how to create it and what causes disease was that we got it all wrong with fats. And it was never saturated fats and butter that clogged our arteries. It was always these polyunsaturated fats. And I just did a blog post on how we were kind of tricked by a scientist named Ansel Keys into believing that butter and eggs and those kind of natural saturated fats were clogging our arteries, when in his experiments he used margarine, which is hydrogenated vegetable oil, and it is a solid fat, and he called it saturated fat, and there were saturated fat molecules in there, but it was not butter, like he was kind of misleading everybody to believe. So there was never any reason to believe that these fats, natural fats that nature makes, have any bad health outcomes whatsoever. And we've done a lot of, confusing ourselves with statistics to convince ourselves that, these fats are bad, but it's all statistical manipulation and chemical obfuscation of the truth. And that's another thing that I go into in our book, because it's a huge, huge point of confusion in our society now. And there's like these two, it's like a sports game. Like there's people who are pro natural fat and there's people who are anti-natural fat, particularly anti-animal fat. And they're like always fighting each other. And I really want us to make our peace, because the casualty of this war is our health and our children's future. And we've got to understand what the truth is. So I do go into quite a good deal of the background, how we got mixed up in deep nutrition.
Well, I'm glad you have that as a resource, because as we go out and crusade and evangelize, and folks say, well, we've been doing this and that for years, and this is what we were told, we have the resource there to counteract that and support.
Exactly. And one other thing that I want you to touch on really, really quickly is, so vegetable oils is one of the major things you say to stay away from. The other one is excess carbohydrates.
Right.
So why is that?
Because our body knows carbohydrates are converted into sugar by the digestive system. So starchy foods can raise our blood sugar and sweet foods can raise our blood sugar. And our body knows sugar is toxic. It's toxic because it's sticky. So it needs to regulate it very carefully. We do need some sugar, but we really need to know, we need to keep the amount that we eat under control. And our body has all these hormones to keep our blood sugar under control that we can kind of mess up if we eat way too much starchy food. Yeah. And so yes, we do get to have some fruits. We do get to have some potatoes or beans or rice or whatever starchy food you like. But, we don't have to do a 0-carb diet to be healthy. But we do have to be careful, because in America, we produce way too much starch because it's so easily mechanized, and it's flooded our grocery stores, so that, most of the foods in our grocery stores are very starchy and or made out of these vegetable oils. Easily 80% of a person's caloric intake can come from just these two compounds. And you mentioned an experiment. We're all part of an experiment. That is the experiment. What happens when you eat these two foods that are the cheapest, these two kind of ingredients that also are the cheapest to produce and give us, these really flood the market with these super cheap foods.
Yeah. You know what? So we got... Now, I'm just kind of wrapping my mind around this, and it's just really a sad state of affairs. But at the same time, all of these negative thoughts that I might carry, they're carried by a more empowering thought, and that we are changing that right now.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
thank you.
Because I started thinking about the children, and then I says, well, we're addressing.
So this excess carbohydrates, and she just kind of put it right there in black and white, they get converted into glucose in your body, whether it's from strawberries or from strawberry now and laters, right? But of course, the strawberry is going to come with micronutrients and enzymes and all this other good stuff, minerals, vitamins, trace minerals, that kind of good stuff. However,
and real flavor, so you're not like hijacking those taste buds.
Exactly, but it's still going to end up as glucose in your body, so you can still overdo it. It's much harder to overdo with berries than with sweet potatoes or with, rice and beans and things like that. And there are ways we can go about doing this smart. It's not that we can't have those things to be incredibly healthy. It's putting them in the right spot. And also practices like, what about sprouting beans and even rice and things like that, soaking them? What about that?
That is actually in pillar number 2. It's fermented and sprouted. It's a 2-compartment pillar.
Yeah.
And the sprouting process helps to reduce the carbohydrate count a little bit, because if you want to make bread from wheat, you can pulverize it into a powder, and all the starch that was in the wheat seed is going to be in your bread. Or you can first germinate it a little bit, and the enzymes in the seed will wake up and start to grow a little baby wheat plant, and in the process it burns through some of that storage starch and creates new nutrients like vitamins and fiber and amino acids and stuff like this. So that sprouted grain bread has about 10% less starch and that much more of a variety of nutrients. You can sprout anything. You can sprout nuts, seeds. You can sprout any seed. You can do that with beans. So we've even done it with split peas, where you kind of soak them for a couple of days and they get just a tiny, tiny little rootlet. And then you know it's done. You're not turning it into a sprout. You're not going to be eating sprout soup. You're going to be eating, split pea soup. But it'll just be a little bit more healthy than it would have been if you do that first. And it really makes the flavor much, really kind of interesting.
Right. More nutritious and more digestible as well, because we're getting rid of some of the, the phytates, lectins, things like that. Some of these things are kind of dissolving.
Absolutely.
Yeah, anti-nutrients. So this is something, if you are consuming those foods, you definitely want to pay attention to that practice of soaking them or preferably sprouting them as well to make them healthier for you. Humans have tried to eat a lot of stuff, and some of these things, beans have been eaten a long, long time. So, a little section of the nutrition world that's making beans to be villains, like, they make you fart, they're the worst. Beans are the worst. What's the song? Beans,
good for your heart.
There's another one. It's like beans, the immortal fruit. The more you eat, the more you poot. I don't know, something like that. Something like that. Anyways, but like they see what they do. It's because of the digestive capacity, right? So it's doing the things to help them to help to break down these anti-nutrients and make them more digestible. But also, these are sources of nutrition that have helped civilizations live. Right? So we have to pay attention. Again, what have we done historically? Twinkies are super new. Beans have been around a long time. I'm not saying to go out and start jamming down beans and lentils, but just be aware that there are long-lived cultures that consume these things, but they're doing this in a little bit more of an intelligent fashion. So last thing, it's been so awesome having you on. You talk about something called Beyond Calories. And I think it's a good place to kind of close here for today. Beyond calories to achieve your ideal health and weight. So what do you mean by that, going beyond calories?
We want to get rid of the idea that food is fuel, because that gives you the mistaken belief that, okay, well, you could just grab whatever kind of food, whatever for calories, because you're just throwing it into the fire, right? It doesn't matter whether it was, coal, or whether it was a fine antique chair or something like that. It doesn't matter. You're just going to burn it. But food is information. And so that's what we're talking about with beyond calories. So that is how we have this phenomena where if you take cancer cells and you give them a lot of omega-6 fatty acids, the pile of cancer cells on the petri dish there gets bigger. And if you give it a lot of omega-3, the pile of cancer cells on the petri dish, can actually disappear altogether. So that is information. There's chemical information there that gets back to that other concept that we talk about your intelligent genes. The food is the information that is telling those intelligent genes what you're supposed to do. And an example of what our diet and this experiment that we've now been in for several generations that some children were born into, what happens when your mother doesn't get enough protein? Well, they've done studies in mice, and they found where they kind of mimicked that situation, and they found that the babies born to the mice mothers who did not get enough protein, they were physically smaller. They didn't have the same lean body mass, and eating the same exact diet, they were more prone to putting on fat because the protein information had been missing, and they did not get the instructions to develop the lean body parts like the bone and the muscle. So they were just more fatty. And unfortunately, this is something that is also happening to children uh, and there is actually, to the extent that there's a researcher in Louisiana who said that we now have a generation of children who are who are genetically different and metabolically different because of this, and they are more prone to obesity. So it's going to be harder for them to avoid becoming overweight, but that makes it all the more important for them and for their parents to understand what a healthy human diet is, and to try to really avoid the two big toxins, the vegetable oils and the sugars, and to get this diversity of diet and live a healthy lifestyle, including sleeping.
Awesome.
Especially that. Nice
Awesome.
in
Yeah.
depth.
And
Yes.
of course, you talk about all of these things in depth, and there's so much great research in your book, wonderful studies. And it's just, I think this is an important book, really important book for people to check out. So can you let everybody know, first of all, where they can find the book? Because when this is coming out, you got like a little pre-order, a bonus that their people are getting. So can you let people know where they can find that, and where they'll be able to find the book?
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. So, I happen to have one
There's
right
the
here.
name.
There
You
she
guys
is.
have held that for us.
But so I won't be able to hand it to everybody, but go to my website, drcate.com, drcate.com, no dot after doctor. And until before the book is released, I'm running a promotion where if you buy the book and come back to the website, it's all links there. You actually get access to a copy of one of our books called Food Rules, A Doctor's Guide to Healthy Eating, which is what we hand out to all the Lakers players, because it's a really short pieces of advice, one on each page, about real actionable things that you can do and understand, like almost like little sound bites. So you'll really enjoy that.
Perfect. So people can find the brand new edition of Deep Nutrition at drcate.com. And of course, after the release date, it's going to be available everywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all that good stuff. But definitely check it out. This should be in your library. This should be in your mind, body, and spirit, this information from Deep Nutrition. And the subtitle is Why Your Genes Need Traditional Food. And you also, limited time right now, when this comes out, head over to drcate.com and you can get that bonus as well. Dr. Cate, you are a gift, and I appreciate you. I appreciate your personality and how we connect. And I'm really excited for you, and just can't wait to see what you do next.
You're doing a great thing for everybody, Sean. I'm so happy that you do what you do, and I'm so happy that you had me on your show. It really was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. The pleasure's all mine. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the show today. Today was about deep nutrition, and this is a fundamental part of who we are as human beings. She said the words earlier, you are what you eat. And we know the stories, there are more parts to that, but this is a fundamental part of reality. What you put into your body becomes who you are, so that's very powerful and very sacred. So if there's anything that we can do today, it's to become more aware of what we're making ourselves out of and making higher quality choices, because you are a higher quality choice. You are favored, you are important, and you are valuable. And I would implore you today to treat yourself as such, and also to bestow that upon your family as well. And in love. I think that food, for me, is love. And to be able to share that with yourself and the people you care about, it's really a game changer. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you got a lot of value out of this today. Take care. Have an amazing day. And I'll talk with you soon.